Isn't living in the U.S. the greatest thing ever? I mean, let's face it, it's the greatest country there is. We all know it. There's nobody really flocking to go anywhere else. Unless they know they can't get here, so they try to go somewhere else. But you know, I wanted to touch on something today. Have you ever lived in a Muslim country? Because my family and I did for about a year and a half. Wyatt was about 2 months old, and I took a position. I was the lead tactical coordinator building the world's largest SWAT team in the United Arab Emirates. People may not know that country. It's where Dubai is, Abu Dhabi. And you want to know it was an interesting experience, I got to tell you. And people say, well, what was bad there? What was wrong? And you know, honestly, I can't say with a fair conscience that anything was wrong or bad. But man, very different. Their culture is very different. But you know what I love most about living in a Muslim country? They were Muslim. Now, does that sound confusing? Let me explain what I mean. You know, in Muslim countries, they have called prayer. I remember the first day I arrived there, you know, I had all these thoughts in my head about being in the Middle East, and Muslims want to kill Americans and want to kill Christians. And I arrived like 7 o'clock at night to this overwhelming heat in the dark at the airport, picked up by one of the guys from the company. And you know, I stayed in the villa. We had a villa the first 6 weeks before I brought my family over. I lived upstairs in the villa where the business was. And I remember looking out the window, and there was all these people dressed in their attire, you know, the white attire, and it was sandy, and there was a little convenience store out the window. And I just remember looking out there on the other side of the world, no gun. I brought a couple really awesome knives. Mercworks makes some really awesome knives. So I had this huge fighting knife and a smaller one, and I pushed there was a small hallway that was about 5 feet long inside of my room. I had a huge bedroom with its own bathroom, and the doorway that went into the room had about a 5-foot hallway that was about 4 foot wide. So I pushed my dresser up against the door, so right, if the door opened this way, the dresser was against the hinge side, which would have meant if anybody wanted to come in to get me, they had about an 8-inch gap to come between the door and the wall. And I figured, you know, I could hold my own, kind of like the Spartans held the Persian army, right, and the gates of fire. So that was me. That was my living there for the first 6 weeks. You know, so paranoid and over everything I believed had been told about Muslim countries and Muslims and blah, blah, blah. And I got to tell you, I found nothing like that to be the truth. Did I have a few people give me some odd looks? Absolutely. But you know what? Who knows what those people are informed of, as opposed to, like, look at our people. Look what we're informed of. We all know now that the media is an issue. It just really is. Whether we want to think it's all corrupt or not, or there's this huge scheme, which, gee whiz, things sure look like that. But overall, you know, people only know what they see on the news and what they hear. So here we live in a country that's really controlled. There's no doubt there's a lot of control in the United Arab Emirates of what's put out media-wise. But I have to tell you, I lived there for a year and a half with my family. I did that first 6 weeks. Anyway, going back to so then the next day I wake up, I go to the training grounds, and I get out, and it's like 120 degrees, and the sun's pounding down, and the first call to prayer comes on, you know, and it's in Arabic. And I remember just thinking, what am I doing here? You know, what am I doing? But what a great experience. I gotta tell you, from the first 6 weeks when I was there by myself, to then coming home and then bringing my wife and 2-year-old son, both blonde hair, blue-eyed, back to the United Arab Emirates, we were treated with nothing but decency and kindness. Always. I mean, we moved into a brand new hotel, and we were on the top floor. We had a beautiful room, and everybody, all the staff, it was a brand new hotel. So we were the first baby in the hotel, and we were going to live there, you know, full time. So the whole staff, we got to know them. We're still friends with many of the staff on Facebook and still converse with them. They named him Superman. You know, it's interesting in the middle. There's not a lot of blonde hair, blue-eyed babies in the Middle East. So let me tell you, we would go through the mall. Everybody wanted to hold them, pick them up, touch them, look at them, take pictures of them. It was crazy, right? But I got to tell you, I mean, and talk about an influx of people. right? We made friends from Ireland and England and Australia, and we met people from all over the world. You know, my wife joined a mother's group, a mommy's group, and they all got together, and it was incredible. And then I made friends with some of the Emiratis, which is the nationals of the United Arab Emirates. My wonderful friend Yusuf, who's still a wonderful friend to me, we still talk all the time. And you know, that nobody ever allowed me to pay for a meal or to buy a drink or to do anything. I mean, they're the most gracious, kindest people, and somebody can look for evil intent and blah, blah, blah. But you know what, man? It's not what I experienced. But even though it was incredibly different, it was awesome. It was an incredible, I would go back. I really would, even though I would hate leaving Montana. I really don't ever want to leave Montana. I really don't. And it's not like Montana's perfect. There's got some issues here too, but boy, I sure love the country, and we've got some wonderful friends here. But going back to what I love most about a Muslim country being Muslim, right, is, believe it or not, we're a Christian nation. I talk about it a lot, but we are. I mean, you know, look at the presidents, and God bless America. Wouldn't that indicate that we're a Christian nation? I mean, now, unfortunately, I think some people say that because they want to be elected. Why? Because we're a Christian nation. They want the Christian vote. Pretty easy way to do it. But other justification for Christian nation is look at the founding documents. Look at how many of the founding fathers that wrote the Declaration of Independence, 56, 52 of them were attending churches. I mean, it was biblical violations that brought them to writing the Declaration of Independence. But why is it that we're a Christian nation and we got to pretend like we're not? Why is it that our country was founded on Christianity and God that said, hey, you have these rights, and the founding father says, we're not giving you these rights, you've already got them, we're just going to write this piece of paper, and we're going to make sure that nobody can take them away. And now we have government now trying to take those away. Why would we allow that? So you live in a Muslim nation. They do call to prayer several times a day. Honestly, off the top of my head, I can't remember. I think it's 5 times a day. Maybe it's more. So you'll hear it. I got to tell you something. It's different. I never understood the language. I began learning Arabic, but we were only there a year and a half, so I was no master of the language. But I got to tell you something. Regardless of my thoughts on religion and their thoughts on religion, we treated each other with nothing but respect. They wanted me to become Muslim. I wanted them to become Christian, and then we'd go on with whatever we were doing. But regardless of what people think about other people's religions, you have got to respect the fact that their religion is so important to them as a people that they put it over loudspeakers, and people are, you know, they're reverent to it. They pray all the time. I mean, everybody in the nation takes time out to pray. You got to love that. Where are we in this nation? But I love the fact that they're Muslim, their government is Muslim, and that's all right. That was all right with me. They treated me with nothing but respect. So why can't we have a government that's Christian in a Christian nation to make sure that we follow Christian biblical devotions? Now we have people from different religions getting into the government, and man, we have nothing but problems. They see things different, and that's okay. But why are they in our government? Now I know people will call me names. I'm a something phobe. Who knows? Something phobe. He's American phobe maybe or something. But I'm telling you something. I have great friends that were Muslims, and my family, blonde hair, blue-eyed, 2-month-old, and wife, and when I had a lot of hair, was blonde, blue-eyed, nothing but respect. And they're Muslims, and they love their religion, and it means something to them. But why is it that even though presidents and congressmen and senators, when they give a speech, they always say, God bless America, and but we're supposed to pretend like God's not really a part of this? I think that's the problem, don't you? As everything falls apart, as we have mass shootings, you know, we talk about, oh, guns, more guns. It has nothing to do with it. Everybody knows this. You see the stories. I remember as a kid, I used to walk around with a rifle in the desert. Nothing ever happened to me. Kids would take guns to school. Nothing ever happened. They did it because they were going shooting later. And now we alienate guns, and because it's ludicrous. It's nonsense. You know what the problem is? It's a moral problem. And you know why it's a moral problem? Because we're taking God out of the country. People say, I don't want to believe in God to be something. I got my own morals. Really? What are your morals? What do you think is right for you? Or what do you think is right for me? I see the Holy Bible as the rule book for life. Treat people right. Treat people like you want to be treated. Love people. Be caring. Be kind. Be thoughtful. Smite those that would smite others. I mean, pretty simple, right? But it's not convoluted with garbage. Like we're getting overwhelmed with laws and nonsense. And people that are so focused in government. And listen, I am not anti-government. I got to tell people that because I'm not one of those guys, the government. But there are people in there that should not be in there. I think we need to start putting a lot more blue collar in there. Why don't you think about that next time an election comes up? Stop being worried about somebody who has a college education. That's the only thing they can really attribute. And they have wealthy friends, so they make them, he's a direct board of directors on this, and he's this and this. And a guy, you know what? Putting somebody in charge that's never had their hands in the dirt, that's a big mistake. That's a big mistake. You know, did you ever see my video about Fred the Farrier? Fred the Farrier, who'd been shoeing horses his whole life since he was young, like 14, had to quit school to help with the family. Of course, this is a story I made up, but then along came Will the Writer. He saw Fred the Farrier, thought it was kind of cool, wrote a book about it, and everybody started reading the book. And then Will the Writer traveled around the world as an expert in being a farrier because he wrote this book all off of the exploits of Fred the Farrier, who was a simple man who just knew how to put shoes on horses. And then along came Rob the Reader. He loved reading the book that Will the Writer wrote, and he went on the traveling circuit with it, and they became world-renowned as farriers, and they never touched a horse. But they're the experts. And old Fred the Farrier, who's always done it, knows everything about it, because we all know you can learn something from a book, but it's not till you put your hands on it and go to work that you really learn. That's the problem with the country. We got people running the country who've been brought up in wealthy families, went to specialty schools where they were brainwashed, have no ideas of the realities and the troubles of real people, make promises they never have to live up to, and they're bred to stay in and be in politics for 40 years. And that is not what this country was founded on. Of the people, by the people, for the people. Of the people. By the people, for the people. But we're electing people because they go to college and they look impressive. It's nonsense. You don't have to be an articulate speaker. I've always said that the best president of the United States doesn't have to be a great speaker. He doesn't. And he doesn't have to have all the answers like we go to these debates, because there's a lot of people that know the answers. If I was in a debate and somebody asked me, I said, well, you know what, I just use my advisor that knows about that. What does the president of the United States got to do? He's got to love God. This is my opinion, all right? This is Jody Vantac of Vantac International's opinion. What is the greatest president in the world ever going to be, the greatest president of the United States ever going to be? He's going to be a man that is reverent and loves God. That means he believes in something bigger and better than himself, so he won't decide his decision is right. And that he cares about the country, and that he respects people that know what they're talking about, not by titles, but by actions. This is a Christian nation. Christians need to be running it, or it won't be Christian anymore. And let's start voting blue-collar people. Do you know somebody fabulous that should be in politics? Do you know what I find so interesting? I'm way over my limit because I try to stop at 10 minutes. But you know what I think is most interesting about politics? People that should be in there don't want to be. You know, I have a cousin. I'm going to tell him. I have a cousin. He lives in Orland Park, Illinois. He's lived there his whole life. His name is Tom. Tom Show. I love him with all my heart and soul. He's lived in that community his whole life. I said, you need to run for mayor. He's a devout, loving husband, devout, loving father, great friend, caring, giving, thoughtful. He's awesome. That guy should be mayor of Orland Park. And he doesn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And honestly, I don't blame people who don't want to get in there. I'd go in there. You know, my wife's like, why don't you stop fighting? Why don't you stop doing things? I can't help it. That's what God made me, man. I'm a warrior. That's the way it is. I'm a broken down, old, and somebody don't like that. They'll think I'm a warrior. Now some young guy will say he wants to punch me in the nose because he's tougher than me. You have no idea. All these ideas of what's great and what strength is, and then people don't even take the time to commit themselves. You know what warriors do? They step out when it's right, no matter what the cost is. And there are not a lot of people that do that. Anyway, God loves you. Think about it. Think about what I'm talking about the next time there's an election coming up. And let's get the country together, because you and me and a few million other people can get it back on track. Keep safe.